Hey guys, at another hotel, at another convention, con bravo, but that's not gonna stop the Avatar vlogs. This episode, this is the Firebending Masters, and this is the episode where Zuko is joined up with Aang, and he's gonna start teaching him firebending, but he finds out his powers aren't so hot anymore, no pun intended, and he can't seem to get them going, so they both traveled to this ancient city, I guess, where these, like, the original people that put firebending into work and where dragons were and stuff. I mean, just like the creation of firebending took place. And sure enough, they find that there's people there and there's still tribes. And as we discover as it goes further and further, there are in fact dragons, which is pretty cool. And the only one that knew they were around was the uncle, and he kept it a secret. He kept it even a secret from his nephew and everyone that he knows, because the dragons let him live, and they suspected that he was good enough to keep his word, not tell anybody, and he was. So that's very cool. So this episode, first of all, it's sort of a fun Indiana Jones-ish episode where there's booby traps, there's things trying to get them, there's these ancient artifacts, there's little riddles and treasures, and so on that level it's really great fun. But on another level, with the arrival of the dragons near the end, which was not a huge surprise for me, but it was still great to see, and I love the way... I'll keep telling you in a second. I'm going to talk about the way they do the camera work on it. But I like the reveal of what fire can do and showing the possibility of fire. Because so much of the show and their perception has been that fire is a destroyer and it's too dangerous and it doesn't create. And just that wonderful scene where the two dragons, they blow the fire together and it creates all these various colors. And you see certain colors in fire before. You can see like a blue flame or a red flame. It's not always orange and yellow, but I mean they're seeing like greens and purples and all these. I mean, just what a great creative idea, and just a wonderful visual to see that, so that when you see them like seeing the secret of firebending, it's like you get it visually. I mean, you don't know exactly what they're seeing, but you get that same feeling as they're going through it. So I thought that was a very effective way of showing it, and then, of course, they do explain it later as well. So you got that going for it, but what I really like, and this is what I appreciated mostly with this episode, about the show in general, what I realize is that now that Zuko is teamed up with Aang, it works so well. And what it made me realize is that I think particularly with American entertainment, Americans are still very rebellious, and when you think about really what a young, nation we are, it makes sense. We started from breaking away. We started from being rebellious and fighting back, and we won, and we succeeded, and we got our independence. And I think just knowing that's our history, and knowing as long ago as that was, it wasn't that long ago when you really look at like the grand history of the world. So Americans really seem to love the underdog, and they love the rebel, and we love the villains. We really enjoy villains. And I'm realizing more and more we may enjoy them too much. And what I mean by that, and I love villains too. I did the top 11 villain songs. I love villains that much. I adore villains, and I love really great villains, and the show has some great villains. But what I realize watching this now is that I think because we got so villain happy, we sort of forgot how to really compliment the villain with a good hero, where it used to really be you compliment the hero with a good villain. And now you have the two together, and they're already working up how parallel they were and how similar they were, and they complement each other so well. I like seeing these two together, and that's two very well-developed characters put in a situation where you want to see them together. You want to see how they interact. You want to see the relationship. You want to see what they say. You want to see what they learn off each other. And it's very rare that I get a show where I can like both the villain and the hero, but you respect them both sort of equally, or you really like seeing them together. And here, I really do. It's not, well, that character is good, but I love the villain, or that character is good, but the hero is, too good and the villain's too simple. I mean, and no, they're both so good, and in many ways very parallel, in many ways very different. And when they go on this journey together and just seeing them work off each other, I really, really enjoyed it. I loved seeing their interaction. And yeah, I think there's just sort of this part of us that so enjoys a really good bad guy that we do sort of forget to really like the good guy. So often the bad guy is done too well. You almost start rooting for the villain. And the heroes can be done well too, but, who's ever going to dress up as? They're going to dress up as the bad guy. So I like the fact that this show does spend just as much time developing just as unique and good heroes as they do with their villains. It seems like everything is so well balanced that way. I know that's a word I use a lot in describing the show, but it does feel just so well balanced. And what I was getting to before I sign off here, just about the camera, when the dragons come out, I've said before, shaky cam a lot of times, it's overused and it's silly, but I shouldn't say, a lot of times it can be very effective. Like here, where the dragons come out, and the camera is slightly shaking. I was asking myself, why does this work here and not in other moments? Because there's lots of times I've seen just people standing around and the camera is moving, sort of that animation moving where the camera can't really be moving, and it's an effect they put in later. And sometimes it can be so distracting, other times it can really work. And I felt it really worked here when those dragons came out. You felt the size and the weight of these dragons, and I realized why. It's because what they're doing is that they're circling around, and so what it feels like it's doing is that the wind and the weight and the strength of them circling around is shaking the camera. So there, it's really justified. It isn't just shaking for no reason. It makes you actually feel the size of these things. And it's such a subtle little touch. But I imagine that scene, if you took out the little shaking of it, I mean, it'd still be good, but it wouldn't be nearly as impressive. Just that little shaking when the dragons are circling around worked out really, really well. And the sound design too, with the giant those sounds going, I mean, that was really great. But I think something about that shaking, again, it just gave it that little extra oomph. It made it seem so much larger. Where so many animated shows, particularly on Nickelodeon and American cartoon series, cannot get that size, and they really understand how to capture them. They do such a good job of it. So yeah, I really like this one a lot. I really love the interaction of these two, and it makes me realize more and more just how well put together both of them are. Both the hero and, well, I mean, now the other hero, the villain turns into the hero, but that makes it even more interesting and more complex. I love it. A really, really, really good episode. Had a ton of fun watching it, and I'll just see you at the next one. Take care.